Thank you for listening to the Luminous Recovery Yoga Podcast, hosted by Kari. The views and opinions expressed here are strictly those of the person who gave them. Take what you like and leave the rest. These views and opinions do not represent any specific 12-step program, only my experience, strength, and hope in recovering from the dis-ease of addiction and codependency. If you'd like to learn more, please visit my website at www.luminousrecoveryyoga.com. Hello, my friend. Thank you for joining me for the Luminous Recovery Yoga Podcast. It's so wonderful to be here again this week with you. I really enjoy sharing this space of sharing and yoga and just sort of putting new ideas together and making connections. And it's really a wonderful place to share. So I hope that you find something in here that resonates with you. And as we say in 12-step, take what you like and leave the rest. So it's always up to you what resonates and what you choose to leave behind. So before we get started, I want to make a quick plug for Yoga of 12-Step Recovery. If you are looking for a new meeting, a new experience, or maybe just a place to come together with like-minded folks, Yoga of 12-Step Recovery is half meeting, half yoga practice, and we merge the two together because, as the creator of Y12SR, Nikki Myers, says, the issues live in our tissues. The issues, the things that we go through, they live in our body. And so having a place to sort of process and metabolize these things can really be a wonderful healing space to just start to see ourselves in a new way. So Y12SR is free to join. You can sign up on my website. You can join virtually or in person if you live in the area, and it would be a wonderful space to share with you. So with that being said, let's move into our podcast episode. And last week, I talked about mantras. If you didn't get a chance to listen, you can hop on over to the feed and check out last week's episode. And just to give you a brief recap, a mantra is a direct translation from Sanskrit, which means an instrument for thinking. Man means mind, and tra means an instrument for. So with that as last week's episode, this week I want to share one of my favorite slogans or mantras, really. Something that helps me to organize my thinking, especially when my thinking becomes distorted or cloudy or fuzzy. And I like to call this my 5-point checklist. And it's a slogan slash, it's also an acronym. So it's a word that we can, expand into a bigger thought. And so my topic for this week is think. T.H.I.N.K, think. So think is a slogan, or, you can even say a mantra that expands into thoughtful, honest, intelligent, necessary, kind. Think. T.H.I.N.K. Thoughtful, honest, intelligent, necessary, kind. So this is something that I regularly think about, and it is something that helps me contain my behavior. So one of my favorite definitions of a boundary is to contain my own behavior. Boundaries aren't something that we put on other people. It's something that I use to contain myself. And I'll do an episode about boundaries maybe next week. But think is a boundary for me. Think is a way that I can contain my behavior. So thoughtful, honest, intelligent, necessary, kind. Think. I use think quite often. Think is something that I run most, let's say, emails, texts, anytime I have to respond to somebody, maybe something that isn't as easy as a simple, response email. Email is often a way that I communicate with people. And sometimes, emotions can get high. If you're corresponding with somebody and there's a complaint, or if somebody is complaining about you or whatever it is, or me, I should say, I often run most things through think. Thoughtful, honest, intelligent, necessary, and kind. And this just helps me to, like I said, it's a 5-point checklist. I make sure that whatever it is that I'm sending follows this criteria, that it's thoughtful, that I've spent enough time really thinking about what it is that I want to say, that it's honest, that I'm being accurate in my words, and that I'm being, as careful with my words as possible to be honest. Intelligent sort of goes back to thoughtful, that it's been well thought out, that it's an intelligent thing to say. Necessary. This is actually the biggest one, and I'm going to come back to this later, but necessary. Do I really need to say this? And what of this do I need to actually say? And then kind. Is it kind? Is it something that I would say to a loved one? Is it a way of speaking that will help de-escalate a situation rather than heighten more emotions? So whenever I have to communicate with another person, I always run things through my 5-point checklist: thoughtful, honest, intelligent, necessary, and kind. So as I was saying before, the one that really gets hinged a lot for me, like where things hinge a lot, is necessary. Because oftentimes I want to say things that are thoughtful, honest, intelligent, and kind, but is it necessary? Do I really need to respond to this thing? And I'm not talking about in a professional sense, but also like, you have an experience, if you can relate to this, where maybe somebody says something to you and you automatically want to, like, there's a reaction. Or maybe, sometimes I want to give feedback to somebody about something that maybe it's like, what if I just let this go? Or what if it's actually not my job to say something? Sometimes I have to really discern whether or not it's my place. Is this something that I want to say for them or for me? And that's something that necessary really helps me to center on. Do I really need to make an action here? In my mind, I can always see an action possible. It's generally my motivation to act. When really what I've learned through my recovery, through yoga, is that there are moments to act and there are moments not to act. And even not acting is an action. Inaction can be action. So it's usually what I need to do for myself in order to discover, like, is this a really necessary thing that I need to say? Is this necessary feedback? And so necessary really helps me. Also, kind really helps me. Sometimes things are thoughtful, honest, intelligent, and necessary, but did I say it kindly? Another slogan that I really like is say what you mean what you say, and don't say it mean. and when my emotions are heightened or when something triggers me, oftentimes, I'm a human being. It could be natural to feel mean or to be mean or to want to be mean. And so kind is something that I often have to really sit with. Like, is this kind? And what is the kind thing to say? What is the kind action? And oftentimes when my emotions are high, or let's say something triggers me, that is not even a kindness to myself, because that's another kindness to consider. Is this kind to me? Do I need to give a little bit of space or a buffer between the reaction that I'm having and the response that I would like to give? So kindness can really be a two-way street. It's kindness to other people, but it's also kindness that I show myself. So sometimes I find that, using that 5-point checklist, sometimes one of those things could be missing. Sometimes things are thin, right? Thoughtful, honest, intelligent, necessary, but not kind. Or sometimes things are thick: thoughtful, honest, intelligent, kind, but not necessary. So oftentimes, and I don't struggle as much with the first three, the thoughtful, honest, intelligent. That's oftentimes more head stuff, and I'm pretty thinky, like I'm a pretty thinky person. So it's really that necessary kind, getting into the body and feeling, how am I feeling? Am I able to actually respond to something, or do I need to give myself a little more time and space? So I think that it's easy to get carried away in emotion and in reaction. And what I've really learned through my practice of yoga and through my recovery practice is that kindness needs to also extend to me. And sometimes the kind thing to do is to put some space or buffer between, responses. So, that could look like, for me, meditating. When I meditate, most recently I had a situation where something happened where there was an email sent and I needed to respond to the email. and I felt really anxious. I felt a lot of anxiety in my body. So my sponsor first suggested that I sit. Don't do anything. Just sit. And what that gave me an opportunity to do was to sit with where I was feeling the sensations in my body. And that's something that I've learned from yoga. Yoga has helped me to feel sensations in my body. So, when somebody asks you to feel your feelings, like that could be really confusing. Like, what does that mean? Feel your feelings? Because if you're not in the practice of feeling, how the hell do you feel a feeling? Like that it feels very meta. So what I've learned is how to feel sensations in my body. And oftentimes emotions and feelings do manifest as sensations. For me, I often feel those sensations in my belly and in my chest and in my throat, right here, kind of down a line. So to feel my feelings, I really sit with where I'm feeling the sensations and how those sensations of the feeling are manifesting in my body. And honestly, when I sit with those sensations, very often they pass quite quickly. I recently heard that emotions or feelings could pass within 90 seconds if we really took the time to sit with them and feel them. And I found that this was true for me recently when I was having this like major anxious attack. I sat and I really focused on where in my body I was feeling the sensations, and I felt them. Like I really sat with the sensations and let them talk to me, and very shortly after they passed. And once that settled down, I was able to think. I was able to really sit with my thoughts, to marinate in it, and just to really decide what it was that I wanted to say and decide who I wanted to be in the situation. And think is just something that I run everything through. Is it thoughtful, honest, intelligent, necessary, kind? And it does need to follow all 5 of those points. So that's my 5-point checklist, think. And I find it to be really useful, especially when I have to respond to something challenging. So I want to ask you that. Do you have a criteria? Do you know when it's time to act, or do you tend to be reactionary? And I think it's okay to be reactionary. It's just a matter of what we do with it. Like I have reactions. I have just really learned to not make major decisions for myself or others based on those reactions. So I certainly do react to things, but I react to appropriate people like my sponsor, my therapist, my program friends, or maybe I take it to a meeting and talk about it. And certainly reacting is part of being a human. It's part of sort of the experience of having emotions and having feelings, but there are also appropriate people, places, times, I think, to have those reactions. And so it's become very important for me in my recovery that I react appropriately. And appropriately means that there's a container for my reaction. So I can react as long as I'm in a container for it, rather than, say, responding off the cuff or, shooting that text or email back that is snippy or rude or not thoughtful, right? So I have found that to be really important to keep my side of the street clean, so that, I haven't hit the step yet where you make amends to folks. I haven't gotten that far in my step work yet. And that's okay. What I have learned is not to create new messes that I will eventually have to clean up later. So, I'm very aware that that step is close, it's coming, but also I do my best today to not create new messes that will require additional cleanup and pickup later. So think. Thoughtful, honest, intelligent, necessary, and kind really helps me to just contain myself and to find those safe containers, those safe people, to have my reactions and to not necessarily have big explosions all over the place on people, places, and things. So what do you think about that? Is that something that you might be able to integrate into your life? Is that helpful? Is that useful? Please always feel free to leave a comment if you're watching this on YouTube or Apple Podcasts. Leave a comment and let me know if this resonates with you. So if think is something that you might want to integrate into your life or into your response protocol, you know, the way you respond to other people. Yeah, let me know if that's helpful to you, because it's very helpful to me. So hopefully you got something out of this. And like I said, if not, take what you like and leave the rest. And I'm just really happy to share this space with you. So with that being said, let's transition to our short practice. Our practice is guided by our breath. So, you know, the most important thing you can do on the mat is breathe and listen to what your body is saying. And if that seems really like ethereal, like, what do you mean listen to what my body is saying? Then just keep coming back, keep showing up to the mat. You know, we keep coming back time after time, and we learn. And so if that feels really like it doesn't resonate yet, don't worry about it. Just keep trying, keep showing up to the mat, and eventually you might be surprised that when you're listening, your body does have something to say. So listen for your breath, listen if your body has anything to say, and we'll have a short, mellow practice. I'll see you on the mat. All right, my friend, thank you so much for joining me here for practice. And we'll just move our bodies and try to process what happened in the first part of the podcast, where we talked about think, thoughtful, honest, intelligent, necessary, kind. So this practice will be a grounding practice, just to root in and feel our bodies on the earth. So with that being said, let's begin in downward facing dog. Put your hands on the floor, step your feet back, and just notice the distance between your hands and your feet from left to right, front to back. Find a softness in your knees. Stretch your fingers and your toes out. And just walk your dog. Bend your knees, pedal your legs out. Walk your dog. And just remember, we do this one step at a time. Both our yoga, recovery, this all just happens one step at a time, moment to moment. And sway your hips from side to side. Take some big sways from left to right. Move your breath. Stretch your right leg behind you, three-legged dog. And step your right foot forward, low lunge. Put your left knee on the floor and stack your shoulders over your hips. Reach your arms up over your head. Set your gaze forward. Relax your shoulders. And listen for the sound of your breath in and out of your nose. Look up at your fingers and stretch your fingers just a little bit taller. Lengthen the sides of the body. And then we'll twist. Put your left hand on a block or on the floor. Start with your right hand on your right thigh and look up and over your right shoulder. And if it feels good, stretch your right fingertips to the sky. Move the breath in and out of your nose with clarity and ease. Take a big breath in and out. Put your right hand on the floor. Pivot to the left side of your mat, side facing wide leg forward fold. Drop your head between your legs and allow your head to hang heavy towards the floor. And shake your head out, yes and no. Catch opposite elbows for Ragdoll Arms. And just take a long stretch here in your spine. If this doesn't feel quite good to you, you can put your forearms on your thighs and just take this a little bit less. Just back off a little bit. Release your elbows. Put your hands on your hips. Press into your feet. Rise up. Warrior 2. Turn your right toes to face forward. Bend your front knee and stretch fingertip to fingertip. Big breath in. Big breath out. Reverse your warrior. Take your right fingertips up to the ceiling and stretch your right side body. Side angle pose. Put your right forearm on top of your right thigh. Make a loose fist with your right hand. Stretch your left fingertips to the ceiling. And if it feels good, look up. Take a big breath in and out. Come to a tabletop position. Take some rounds of cat-cow. Drop your belly, lift your chin and your chest up to the ceiling, and then round your back, tuck your chin to your chest. Do that a few more times with the rhythm of your breath. Take one more round. And then meet me in downward facing dog. Tuck your toes under your heels, press into the floor, and lift your tailbone up to the sky. Stretch your left leg behind you. Low lunge. Step your left foot forward, put your right knee on the floor, and rise up to stack your shoulders over your hips. Reach your arms up over your head. Steady your eyes forward. Just find one place where you can set your gaze. And find your calm, steady breath. Notice how the breath feels moving through your body. Find the sensations. And this is how we begin to learn to identify the sensations in other areas of our body, like our emotions. We feel our body. Look up at your fingers. Stretch your fingers 2 inches taller. Take a full breath in and out. We're coming into a twist. Put your right hand on a block or on the floor. Start with your left hand on top of your left thigh and look up towards the ceiling. And if that feels good to you, you can peel your left hand away from your thigh and stretch your fingertips to the sky. Notice where you're feeling the pose in your body. What areas of your body light up? Notice the breath. Take a breath in and out. Put your left hand on the floor. Pivot to the right, side facing, wide leg, forward fold. This time, interlace your hands behind your back and allow the crown of your head to fall towards the earth. And just notice where you feel this bind in your shoulders, maybe your chest. Shake your head, yes and no. Release your hands back to the floor. Put your hands on your hips. Stand up. Warrior 2. Turn your left toes to face forward. Bend your left knee and stretch your fingertips front and back. Set your eyes to one point. Reverse your warrior. Take your left fingertips up and stretch your fingers to the ceiling. Lengthen through your left side body. Take a full inhale. And rest your left forearm on top of your left thigh. Make a loose fist with your hand. Press your forearm down. Reach your right arm up. Look up at your fingers. Spread your fingers. Notice what the breath is doing. Take a breath in and out. Put your right hand on the floor. Come back to a tabletop position, and we'll take a few more rounds of cat-cow. Make your way to your back. Happy baby. Lie down on your back. Catch the pinky toe edges of your feet and gently pull your knees towards the earth. Now, if this doesn't feel comfortable to you, you can reach for your calves, your knees, or even put your hands on your thighs. And just notice the gentle opening of your hips. Notice where you're feeling the sensations in your body. And again, learning to identify these sensations help us to do other things like feel our feelings or just notice how we feel. And in that noticing, we're better able to respond to whatever life brings us or throws our way. Open your arms into a T. Pull your knees together into your chest. Roll your knees over to the right for a simple twist. And turn your eyes to the left. Bring your knees back to the center and drop your knees over to the left. Turn your gaze to the right. Bring your knees back to the center. Give yourself a big squeeze. Wrap your arms around your shins and pull your forehead towards your knees. And then come into Shavasana, our final resting pose. Lengthen your legs. Pick your shoulders up and slide your shoulder blades underneath you. Allow your feet to be heavy, your hands to feel heavy. If it's comfortable to you, you can close your eyes. In this final resting pose, we practice doing nothing. We practice stillness. There's an element of surrender in this final resting pose. Just turning it over, letting it go. So for a short rest, give yourself permission to be here without any effort. Without any expectation. Take a long, full, deep breath in and empty it out. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. And circle your ankles and your wrists. Take a full body stretch from front to back. And pull your knees into your chest. If it's comfortable to you, roll over to your favorite side. And just take a moment to stabilize. Make your way up to a seat. Bring your palms to touch at the center of your chest. And just take a moment to notice how you feel. You don't have to call it anything or name it. Just notice. Pull your thumbs to the center of your forehead and bow your head towards your heart. In honor of you and me and our practice, I bow to you and say namaste. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today for the Luminous Recovery Yoga Podcast. I appreciate sharing this space with you, and I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to the Luminous Recovery Yoga Podcast. If you'd like to support the show, please consider joining my Patreon or leaving a comment and review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or YouTube.